which is going to be that career-focused activities. And that's really where then we went ahead and we said, okay, we need to focus. So looking at this, the biggest takeaway I get from looking at this right now is this. If you have students that are in CTE programs, they're good. They're going to be covered. And we're going to talk about the options and how we do that to cover them. The issue is what do you do with juniors that are going into their senior year? They're not in a program, but you're realizing that they may not be able to pass those competency state exams. What are you going to do? And that's where we kind of talk a little bit about, I'm going to get into our senior only programs that we've really started to exponentially grow. And that's our plan over the next 2 or 3 years. I'm also going to get into a discussion of, what we do to focus for the foundational options for option 1, and then also the supporting. And I'm going to tell you what we chose with supporting that. I'll be honest, I based it on, number 1 is the importance of it, because I think what we ended up going with is something that's very impactful for the students, but also, I'll be honest, the ease of achieving it. I think it's something that everyone would be able to achieve, and that's the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. So, Graham, can you go ahead to the next slide?
I absolutely can, and I wanted to share, because I completely forgot to do this at the beginning, focused on everything else, but I did start recording the presentation. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew we are recording, and that's just to make sure that folks that were not able to make it today are able to gather this information. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew that.
Okay.
Thanks,
and
Joe.
In that case, options 2 and 3 are awesome options, just so you know. So, okay. So 3 items of focus. What we looked at was going into how we were going to look at graduation requirements and how we're going to meet them. Focus number 1 was providing more options for graduation pathways. So we're going to talk about how within our CTE programs, we made sure that there were multiple ways that students could achieve that foundational goal. I'm also going to go into implementing the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, what that looks like in a program or what that could look like at a high school. I'm going to walk you guys through what we're doing within our CTE programs, and then what we plan on doing with our non-CTE students as well. And then also I'm going to get into the focus on increasing senior-only programming. Okay, Graham, go to the next slide. So students that are in CTE programs, we automatically already know that they all have the web exam option. So that's definitely one of the foundational ones. And in our situation, I will be upfront that our students are extremely successful in web exams, and I think a lot of students are. So just because they can't pass a state, air test doesn't mean that they're not going to do very well in web exams. They're 2 very different fields, and we've had a lot of success in that. That being said, we do know that there are some students that may not be good test takers, and we need to have alternative options for them to demonstrate that foundational competency. So in addition to those web exams, we made sure that we also offered 12-point industry credentials. So this also goes into the prepared for success. So there's a couple different reasons why the 12-point industry credential hits a lot of things, but this is something that we've really focused within the Lakeshore Compact, taking the lead of Euclid Schools. Euclid Schools was very far ahead of this. All of their programs were leading to a 12-point industry credential that they offered. And in the past couple years, Mentor has started moving in that direction as well with our programs to start also offering those credentials. So just kind of going through, here's all of our programs. And again, not all of our programs are offering them, but here's the ones that currently do offer 12-point credentials. We have our welding, studio arts, which is like Adobe, graphic design, which is also Adobe software. Allied health is a STNA credential. Criminal justice is OPATA. And again, I'm just going to kind of go through these just because I figured it might be useful for some of you because you might have some of these programs. Fire science, that does have our EMT and then Fire 1 and Fire 2. Culinary is the ServSafe. Exercise science is new for this year. So I can't think of the credential off the top of my head, but I think it's a physical therapy aid. Urban agriculture for us was one that is kind of a combination. So what we noticed is with our programs, and you may notice this too, there are some programs that it's a clear-cut 12-point credential. Allied health for us is a state-tested nursing assistant. You go into that program, you have the option to get a 12-point credential, and you're done. That's it. You get the 12 points, you get it, you don't get it. Some of the other programs like Microsoft Office, which is a senior only program, you need to get 4 different credentials that are worth 3 points each. So some of our programs are a combination of 3 to 4 different credentials. And if you're not familiar with which I'm assuming all of us on this call are, the Ohio Department of Education does a fantastic job of listing all the credentials. And in addition to that, some of the things that's been going on over the past years, ODE has done a really great job of working with the Ohio Department of Higher Education and also business and industry and helping streamline all of our industry credentials. So that way we can start having a systematic approach of what credentials we are offering to our students and how they align into the workforce. So a lot of the industry credentials that we offer at Lakeshore Compact are industry credentials that the industry is saying these are what we need. So a lot of times you'll see those out there in different forms. Urban agriculture is a combination of 2 or 3 different ones. Networking and IT security, those are A+ and Network Plus credentials. Microsoft Office is self-explanatory. HVAC, which is heating and cooling, is a EPA 608 certification. That's the handling of refrigerant coolant. Patient care is a senior only. That's going to be new for this year. That's an STNA credential that we're offering in collaboration working with Tri-C. And then the following year in FY21 and 22, we're looking at Mentor Fire EMT, which is a partnership with the Mentor Fire Department. And then also medical records, which will be a medical records certification as well. So one of the things that you'll see on here is that we have 5 senior only credentials listed on here. We have the Microsoft Office, the HVAC, the patient care, the Mentor Fire EMT, and the medical records. So a year ago, there was one program. We had Microsoft Office, and that was a good catch-all for students. But what we realized very quickly is with these new graduation requirements, if you are not in a CTE program, you are going to have a very difficult time obtaining one of those foundational goals, because how are you going to obtain those? You're not going to be able to do the web exams. An apprenticeship is it sounds relatively easier, but it's a difficult one to get into as well. So the industry credential is your pathway. So that's why you'll see that we've ramped that up with those programs. Graham, go ahead to the next slide. And one of the other focuses that we did in terms of providing options was focusing on pre-apprenticeships. Now, the thing is and I'll just preface it by saying this now, if you're not familiar with pre-apprenticeships, you wouldn't be alone, because they seem relatively new. It seems in the last 2 years, this is something that's picked up in the state of Ohio, and that we're just starting to really get our footing and establish these in different areas. So in terms of providing different options, instead of just web exams, one of the things that we looked at was for our construction programs was doing a pre-apprenticeship. And we did that through the Carpenters Union out of Richfield in Ohio. It was a really great experience partnering with them. And it allows our students to have a pre-apprenticeship, but allows them the opportunity then to continue their careers after graduation. So the big focus with a lot of our things that we're discussing and a lot of the programs that I'm talking about adding is making sure that you're putting the programs in place for the right reasons. And how are they benefiting? How is it going to fit within the community? Graham, can you go back to the last slide real quick? I just want to go over some of the programs we added. So looking at our programs that we added, so the Mentor Fire EMT that we're looking at implementing next year, the reason we're doing that specifically is that there is a documented shortage of EMTs and firemen in Northeast Ohio. And what was happening is that they were struggling to be able to hire, part of the fire, the fire industry, fire safety, is there's a part-time workforce, and they're not able to hire anybody because not everybody's going into it. So we saw this as a way to not only meet the graduation requirements, but also provide students the opportunity to actually be able to be employed in that career. Patient care, senior only, STNAs are one of the most in-demand fields in the state of Ohio. Every single skilled nursing facility is willing to partner with us. They're willing to hire our students immediately after graduation, and then even provide them to pay for their continuing education to get their RN degrees through Lakeland Community College, which is somewhere up in Northeast Ohio. HVAC was another demand specifically from the community that they weren't they weren't have heating and cooling specialists. So a lot of our programs, again, it's important to make sure we're meeting the needs of the students and saying, how are we meeting the graduation requirements? But then also, does this align with, and I don't want to use the term local needs assessment, but yes, does it align with the local needs assessment of will they be able to be employed in that area? Oh, okay, Graham, go ahead to the next slide again. Sorry.
One quick question that we got was specifically about your culinary program. Do you know what specific credentials students earn there in that program?
Off the top of my head, I don't, but if I can look that up afterwards and get that to them.
Perfect. Yeah, that was just one specific question. Awesome.
So yeah, with our go back to the pre-apprenticeships real quick. Sorry.
You got it.
So with the pre-apprenticeships, what we're looking at doing was this year we first implemented our Mentor Construction pre-apprenticeship, and then we also implemented our advanced manufacturing. And then this upcoming school year, we will be implementing our third pre-apprenticeship, which will be in Euclid construction because of the demand we have in the construction trades in Northeast Ohio, and also the demand from our students. So a lot of times it's got to be that is it checking all the boxes? Is it a matter of, do the students want the program? Do we have the ability to offer the program? And then also, does the community need the program? And if you could check all three of those boxes, then you're going to set everybody up for success. So for us, that was where we were able to double our program. And then we're also working right now with some local organizations to see about the possibilities of setting up a pre-apprenticeship with welding, which again is another documented need in Northeast Ohio and in the state of Ohio. One of the big things I would say with pre-apprenticeships is that you have to be able to partner and align with local organizations that have apprenticeships in place. So what we did in Northeast Ohio, which has been incredible, is that we worked with AWT, which is the Alliance for Working Together. And what that is that's a manufacturing organization. It's a nonprofit. And it's about over 100 local manufacturers. And they're very large manufacturers and small manufacturers. So there's Lincoln Electric as a member and Steris as a member. But then also, small shops also with 2 or 3 employees. What we did is the issue I ran into with apprenticeships when I first was starting to get into this a year ago was that the apprenticeships had to be aligned to a specific apprenticeship. So you were getting tied to one specific company, and it's tough to do that. It's hard to, not everybody's going to be able to do their work-based learning through one employer unless they're a very large one. So working with AWT, we were able to figure out a way for AWT to actually become an apprentice provider themselves. And what that did, again, was it provided a benefit for the whole community in multiple ways. Number one is it allows now for all manufacturers in Northeast Ohio that are members of AWT. So a lot of small companies don't have the ability to have an apprenticeship educator on staff. They just don't have those resources. But through AWT, we're now able to provide them the resources so they can have an apprenticeship, so they can skill up their workforce. But then also, we now have a pre-apprenticeship that aligns to that. So in Northeast Ohio, we are systematically creating a streamlined pipeline of workforce development for the manufacturing industry. And we've aligned this and we are all collaborating. So Auburn Career Center, which is in the city next to us, we're working together with that where we help them with the apprenticeship, and they're also working with the pre-apprenticeship. ATEC, which is further east of us, they're looking at having the pre-apprenticeship. So that way everybody's having the same opportunities. So those are some of the things we're looking at. If anybody's interested in pre-apprenticeships, I don't have all the answers, but I'd be glad to help you any way I can. And we can go from there. All right, Graham, if you can go ahead to the next slide. But before I move on to the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, Graham, is it okay if I just ask if there's any questions or anything like that from anybody? Do you mind?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, and we've had a couple come into the chat, and I was writing them down to be safe. One that I wanted to make sure I asked was, are all of these programs located at the Career Center, or any satellite programs located at the main high school buildings?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, being a compact is awesome. It is. What I will tell you is, in terms of logistics for transportation, it stinks. It's hard. So we are actually in multiple locations. So to give you an example, we have about 5 programs that are based at Mentor High School. So that's our allied health, our marketing and business administration. We have an early childhood education. We run a preschool out of the high school, which is awesome. And like a graphic design program. In addition to that, we have 4 programs that are actually based on Lakeland Community College's campus. So we have students that there are teachers on their campus, though, teaching the program. So we have 4 programs that are located there. Our HVAC program is located at Lake Erie College. And again, part of these is just those partnerships and those synergies and figuring out what's mutually beneficial for everybody in the community. So at Lake Erie College, we have a situation where they were able to build a brand new state-of-the-art HVAC heating and cooling lab that was sponsored by Trane, which is a company that produces heating and cooling equipment. And they offer classes at night for adult workforce. Lake Erie College is a liberal college, but they're real progressive and they're coming up with some crazy ideas to meet the needs of the community. And so they offered this idea at night, and we noticed it wasn't being used during the day. So we reached out to them, and also another school did, Painesville City. And what happens now is Painesville City offers an HVAC program in the morning there, and then we offer a program in the afternoon there. And what's happened is by 3 different organizations using the same facility, we're all contributing to make it better. And so some of the examples would be is that we started this as an HVAC program, getting your EPA 608. About halfway through the year, we noticed that some students were intrigued with welding, and that was something they were interested in. So Painesville City went and purchased virtual welders, and then we sent our teachers out to become, they got certified to now they can provide Lincoln Electric welding certifications. So they bought the virtual welder. This summer, we just went ahead and now we put in Mentor Schools, we purchased in Lakeshore Compact, we purchased an actual welding booth. So now they're going to be able to get their welding certifications in addition to their EPA 608. So by all of us coming together, we're all contributing, but all of our parties benefit. So that's Lake Erie College. We have a brand new program that's starting this fall, automotive technology. We actually partnered with Classic Automotive Group, and our automotive program is based right on the Classic campus in Mentor. And again, one of those things where in the current situation where we're in and the climate and everything going on with everybody, it's how are we thinking differently and how are we thinking alignment and synergies. You know, gone are the times where I'm going to put together a $500,000 automotive lab. That's just not fiscally responsible for a school district to do that. And I don't have the funds or resources to do that. But if a place like Classic Automotive is willing to partner with us, we're able to share resources. So I don't need to buy a $100,000 tool when I can take our students there and practice on it and then go back to our classroom. So those are some of the things we're looking at. At Euclid, we have multiple programs at Euclid High School. Our welding program is currently located at the Lincoln Electric Welding Institute. And then our urban agriculture program is another one that is off-site. So yes, we are in multiple locations. Sorry for that really long answer for how expansive programs are.
It's all good. But it shows the creativity and the flexibility that you have in setting up exactly where those programs would be. You've got somebody helping you out in the chat, answering some questions for you. David Stacklin is answering some of those that folks have with questions. But wanted to also dig in about partnerships. So you mentioned the partnership that you have with the automotive dealer. How often do you meet with those partners? What are those? How does the initial conversation progress into that relationship that's ongoing?
Sure. So realistic, I'll just tell you now, none of these things just like happen. They just don't. But if you're patient and you're willing to reach out, the elite in Northeast Ohio, again, I'm real proud, to be from Mentor, live in Mentor. The community relationships and the partnerships we have are just amazing. The willingness of the community to want to partner and help our students. So with them, that basically it was about a year-long process where I went through the different levels. I went through a manager of one of their dealerships, and then I finally got to a second-level person and a third-level person, and then eventually I was able to get a meeting with Jim Brown, who's the owner of Classic, and we went over our idea, and they liked it. In terms of how we communicate, right now I deal with the service director for Classic, and I would say so right now we're finalizing our classroom lab. So everything is getting put together this summer right now. And I would say I probably talk to him, 2 or 3 times a week. Once things are established, it's obviously not going to be as necessary as that right now. Like at Lake Erie College, unless there's a situation that pops up, there's not as much communication needed. But increased communication and increased partnerships is how a lot of these things end up coming together. A good example would be like AWT. By being with Alliance for Working Together, I'm also, just to declare, I'm a board member I'm on their board of directors also, which is great that they value schools and their input, because they realize that we are providing training for the next generation workforce. And a lot of these conversations end up just organically resulting in something. We don't always go into these things knowing what's going to come out of it, but we know that the more we collaborate, the better that something could potentially come out of that. So even just this morning before this call, I was talking with the executive director for AWT regarding our advanced manufacturing program. We know that there's a huge demand in Northeast Ohio, but I'll be honest, it's also tough for us sometimes to get students in those programs. So a lot of it's constantly thinking, how can we gauge their interest? How can we engage them? How can we motivate them and help them understand the benefits of these careers? It's not just the idea that, and I get it, it's not dirty. We know that. What we need students is at 16 and 17 years old to realize that benefits and retirement and all of these things and consistency and careers, that's where there's a lot of value. So one of the things we were talking about this morning was just a discussion of what does a senior only program look like? Instead of a 2-year drawn out program, is there a way for me to consolidate it to a year? So I'm providing training the first semester, and then second semester, they're going right into a paid internship. So that way they're getting that exposure. They're getting that gratification of seeing what it's going to be like. And in reality, by doing it senior only, I could double the number of students that are offered the program. So do I open that up to area school districts? So again, a lot of our decisions, by being willing to collaborate and help everybody benefit, we all benefit. The saying that I think of a lot is that, a rising tide raises all boats. When things are going good for all of us, we all do better. So it's important that we work together to do that.
Appreciate that, Joe. And I'll save some more questions for the end, just for the sake of time. I want to make sure you have time to talk through the Readiness Seal as well.
Sure, absolutely. So, Graham, is the actual seal form on the next slide after this, just so I know?
Yes, I believe it should be right here. There you go.
Okay, perfect. All right, go back to my slide then. Okay,
yep.
So I've done the whole focus today talking about the foundational ones, because if you can't meet the foundational ones, the supporting ones, those are the real achievable ones. Those are the easier ones. I mean, they just are. They're not foundational. So once you get those foundational ones, which now I think we really understand the value of senior only programming, because you can offer those 12-point industry credentials, you then go down to the supporting ones. And for the supporting ones, it's 250 hours of work-based learning. It was Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. And Graham, what's the third one?
It is the WorkKeys.
Oh, the WorkKeys. All right. And I believe the WorkKeys score is like a 14 now. So again, I'm not saying that's not achievable, but I take it from the standpoint of sometimes I'll use a little bit of common sense. And again, if a kid's not passing some of these tests, why are we suddenly thinking we're gonna take all of our eggs out of this basket of tests and we're not gonna put it on another test? I don't know if that necessarily makes a lot of sense, at least for me personally, at least for our district. What we focused on was the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. And this was something that it seemed like it was pretty big a few years ago, and then it kind of died down a little bit, and now it's kind of starting to make it back up, especially because it's being mentioned with our graduation requirements. And we really dug into this as a district and a CTE department last year of what does this look like? What are the requirements? What are the benefits of this? And so what we ultimately determined is that all CTE, we know how different it is, and it's extremely different depending on all the different programs. But I did believe that there should be some unifying characteristics across the programs, that if you're going to go through a Lakeshore Compact program, or you're going to go through a Mentor School CTE program, there are some things we think that all students should have leaving those programs. And one of those is the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. Some of the other ones that we looked at was we do provide OSHA training opportunities, the OSHA 10 certification for all of our students. If you're going to go into a CTE program, I don't know how workplace safety can't be in there. I mean, it should be. We should all uniform have that. Also, we did some more uniform interview skills. And it's not that our programs don't touch those in their own way, but I found some software that I thought was more unified and providing consistency in that delivery. With the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, we looked at it as one more point that we can be consistent in our practices and also help make sure that we're preparing our students for post-graduation. And what we did is we're now integrating it into all of our mentor CTE programs. And I want to kind of provide you the details of it, of how we do it, because it's like one thing to tell you that this is great, but then if like you leave and you're like, all right, well, how am I going to do this? So I'll kind of get you some of that stuff. The first thing is we keep this a document that is like a paper document. And the reason we do that is because it's like a PDF. And I don't know about you guys, but if you try like writing into a PDF and then you try to save it, it's like you're going to end up losing it. It's like it just doesn't work. So we went ahead and we have a document that's going to be retained by the CTE instructor. Okay. And again, my model here that I'm talking about is for CTE programs, but I will talk about how we're looking at integrating this with our non-CTE students as well. So the document's retained by the CTE instructor, and the requirements of the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal is you have to have 3 mentors. Okay. And that usually is like, well, man, how am I going to get 2 outside people? You don't need 2 outside people. One person has to be an outside person. The other 2 can be school employees. So for us, and again, in terms of making things systematic, is that we made the two first mentors were going to be the CTE instructor, who's retaining the document, the school counselor, and then also there's going to be an industry professional. Now, for us, the industry professional was either going to be, if you were doing a work-based learning opportunity, we were building that into part of the requirements and expectations. We're documenting this. So there was that. But there are many programs that don't have a work-based experience. So whether that means for us, it was looking at, we do something at the end of our CTE program senior year called Capstone, which is a 3-week internship. We were going to tie it to that. And then one of the other options is that I'm having to rethink all this, like all of you guys are, because of COVID. And what does this mean if we don't have as much work-based learning? Because even though some people are having them out, it's a combination of, does your district want students doing work-based learning? But then also, does that industry want students in their place of business? So I said, well, how are we going to do this then? And right now we're looking through the idea of having industry professionals be mentors and actually Skyping in or Zooming into our classes. So that way we can still have that interaction. We are in a very unique time frame where, yes, we are separated, but we also have more tools that have ever been at our disposal to have students interact remotely with professionals. So there's many ways to get the industry professional. Big thing that I would point out is it does not require work-based learning. So just because you don't have a work-based learning component does not mean that you cannot have the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. And I'm going to go over this in the next slide so you see exactly how easy this form actually is. I'd recommend that you start early and document throughout the year. This is not a form that you need to complete in May. It's a form that as students are meeting these requirements, the teacher should be checking them off and then be meeting with the student throughout the school year. And then also, lastly, I want to get into a little bit of how we've taken this another level where, again, when I talk about things being systematically, I also like to talk about synergies. And the more things that we can do that are the same, the more likely it's going to be successful. So we know that we've moved away from SLOs, and this upcoming year we're moving to HQAs. What we actually did as a CTE department is our HQA integration is actually based off the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal rubric. So we are taking 3 categories from the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, and that is now our high quality assessment that we are applying throughout lessons throughout the school year in our CTE programs. And we're really excited about that. Graham, if you can go to the next slide. So this is the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal validation form. Now, there is a rubric that accompanies this. I'm not going to go over the rubric with you. It's self-explanatory. It's a rubric. But what I wanted you to see on this is that, and it's like so hard to see this, it's tiny style, but that's okay. All it is you basically have the student's name there, and then it goes through all of these characteristics, these categories. And when you look at these categories, it has reliability, work ethic, punctuality, discipline, teamwork and collaboration, professionalism, critical thinking, problem solving, leadership, all of these things that I just described. I think all of you guys would realize our teachers could show demonstration of a lot of these in class through various PBLs or different leadership activities. Or for CTE people, how about CTSOs, right? This has literally CTSOs written all over it because all of these things, when I think of Skills USA, they talk about their framework, it aligns to this. So what happens is once they demonstrate it, the student goes ahead and fills in the box on the left, demonstrating they met it. They check, who's going to validate it. And then the mentor puts in their comments. So by having some, meetings throughout the year with the teacher and the student, they're able to document this. And I couldn't think of a better person than the CTE instructor because we have that 2.5 hour chunk, which allows for some of these conversations to take place. And then once these documents are completed, you retain them. And then it's the way that you mark that they've achieved it is through EMIS. And that is how it is. So that's what I got. Are there any questions regarding the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal?
I'm not seeing any in there so far. I'm just giving people a second to see if they wanted to share any. But I appreciate you sharing, and the integration into the programs, Joe, I think is the right opportunity in it, and it makes it less of an additional ask on top of all the things that folks are trying to do. It becomes something that happens a little more naturally, and obviously it takes some work, but it's something that is growing. Had an ask about an outside OMJ mentor be someone like clergy. Yeah, absolutely. That would function as somebody in an outside organization. And that would probably be more in line with the community mentor option. So they can come from community organizations. Debbie Perkle asked, do employers recognize the OMJ Readiness Seal? I hear from employers that they do at times, but Joe, I guess you could probably speak more to that as you're directly talking with employers.
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be going to secure somebody a job, but in terms of them recognizing it, so it's not an industry credential in terms of like an EPA 608 or an STNA. What this does demonstrate, though, is more so I feel this provides a context during the interview to actually have some conversations. So for a student who's met the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, what you've provided those students is the opportunity, because how many times when you have interviews, they're going to ask things about work ethic and professionalism and critical thinking and leadership and teamwork. And what you've done through this is you've had students think about those individual things and examples of when they have demonstrated those skills. So I can't think of anything better, whether it says Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal or not, them having the knowledge of how they've applied these fields, I think would be invaluable during those conversations with employers.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you for speaking to that. A couple more questions. One, do you identify which skills are being evaluated by the instructor or industry professional? This is where, if y'all can see my mouse on the screen right now, where the student would state that they demonstrated that skill. So they check school, community, or work. So community would be where things fall in line with the maybe a clergy or a leader of a youth group that student's involved with. The school would be checked off if the student is showing it there, or work. And the student can show it at multiple places. So they can check multiple of those boxes.
Graham, a good, yeah. So like, again, I'm talking about things that are how we focus on it, which is I focus on the teacher, the counselor, and then whoever's the industry professional. But in reality, the community people could be demonstrating this through Boy Scouts or something like that. So when they have community, the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal forms on ODE's webpage, it's very extensive. They do a very nice job of spelling it out, where they have 2 or 3 documents. They have the validation form. They have the rubric, which is how you would demonstrate it. And then they also have who constitutes as these members. How do you implement it? So going through those forms and spending 5-10 minutes will give you a sound foundation of what's necessary. The one thing I wanted to add was just I forgot to follow up just on how we're doing this with non-CTE students. So we're right now as a district, Mentor Schools, going through our work-based learning and real-world roadmap over the last year of what does it look like K through 12 for our district. And some of the things we talked about are what are certain experiences that we want all students to experience in each grade level, K through 12, related to work-based learning or career exposure. And we are currently aligning how does the Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, where could that fit in there potentially? To me, I see it in a 9 through 12 level, because we are looking at having levels of whether it's not so much guest speakers, but job shadows. And what that looks like is there a 10th grade job shadow? Is there more of a junior project? We have senior project that's 2 weeks, which is a work-based learning experience. Will we ever get to a 2 or 3 day or a week-long situation for juniors, where this would perfectly align with that experience for those? So one of the things that we're exploring is a project-based learning, work-based learning experience. And then, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a week, but it could be 2 or 3 days, but something over an extended period of time where they're collaborating with a community professional on something with their business. Those are the things that we're working through right now.
Thank you, Joe. And I will say, I'll mirror by saying thank you, mirroring a lot of what's happening in the chat. A lot of folks very appreciative of the information that you've shared today, and have felt that what you brought has been incredibly valuable. And I just wanted to quickly, I know we're a couple minutes over time, but I wanted to connect. I started the day off talking about how this applies to those long-term requirements and the competency alternatives. But then, there's that other piece that's the seals. But I think that focusing first on the competency alternatives really does align incredibly well with also earning student seals. So Joe spent a lot of time talking about his career tech programs, 12-point industry credentials or earning bundles of credentials, and that Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal. And each of those has pretty direct alignment to one of these 9 state-defined seals. So you'll see when you look at the Military Enlistment Seal, Technology Seal, Industry Recognized Credential Seal, 2 of those have direct alignment. The Technology Seal can likely be earned through one of the courses that you've set up in your career tech program. And there's a lot more information on our website about how courses apply to that Technology Seal. Obviously, if students are earning 12 points of industry recognized credentials, they would be earning that industry recognized credential seal. And as you continue to look here, earning that Ohio Means Jobs Readiness Seal, that also earns a student a seal, along with being a supporting demonstration there. So right there, you've completed 2 of those requirements if that student earns that seal. And also there is a career tech honors diploma. And that's obviously, an extra piece within career tech, but students can earn that as well. So there are opportunities there, and don't really have time to dig into questions, but just wanted to make sure that we touched on, these opportunities that Joe shared today not only meet that requirement for competency, but can also help students meet that requirement for readiness with those seals as well. So yeah, Joe, anything else that you'd like to share at this time?
No, that sounds great. If there's any way I can help anybody, Graham, can you make sure that my email is on the PowerPoint so that when it gets posted, they can see that? And guys, feel free to reach out. More than willing to talk and share what we're doing and what we know. I don't have all the answers, but if we work together, hopefully we can figure it out.
Well, thank you very much, Joe. We so much appreciate your time and your expertise and your honesty today. And folks, we will have another set of breakout sessions here starting at 11. I've got a couple folks joining me, a couple school counselors joining me for a panel talking through graduation and student success planning and applying that in the time of COVID-19. And we've got a couple more presentations as well. I can let you know what those are and what breakout room they will be in here in just a moment. We've got, oh, go ahead, Joe.
Graham, are you okay if I answer, just as I'm scrolling through the chat, can I answer a couple questions if I see them on here?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So one of them is, what is your school's policy for paying for credentialing assessments? So this is more so dictated by just our federal funding, that our federal Perkins funds for CTE are not able to be used for credentials assessments, which I'm sure we're all aware of. If you're not, ooh. So yeah, you can't use Perkins funds for things that individual students are going to benefit from. So what we do is, yeah, we have to use our general funds to pay for those credentialing assessments. What I would say that the thing that's going to come up a lot is people will say they use their weighted funds they get from the state that's used for CTE programming. I will say that going with the industry credentials, I had a 25% increase in my budget for last year because they're expensive. They do add up. That is something that is, I don't want to say a concern, but it's something that I'm very cognizant of, is that those are costly. We do not pass them on to the students, the costs. We pay for them ourselves. And part of that reason is because I want to say in Ohio, and they keep getting better at this. Again, ODE certain things keep getting better all the time. They do. And one of those things is getting reimbursements for credentials. So it used to be certain credentials were getting reimbursed, but it was like if it was low socioeconomic status, I believe, or something like that. But now they went ahead and they bumped it up again in earlier this year, where now it was everybody was getting reimbursed for certain credentials. Am I correct in assuming that, Graham?
Yeah, you're correct. Anything on the list will be reimbursed. And we have a team that goes through and figures out the costs of each of those credential exams and applies that there. And yet any student that's earning a credential, it's actually required that the school pay for the credential
I was
at this
going to
time
say, let's clarify. We're getting reimbursed. You can't charge them. Okay.
Correct.
Now, the thing that I think kind of stinks is we only get reimbursed if the student gets the credential. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah, at this time that is correct. It's based on reporting that the student earns the credential. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a thing, because like that's not like that money doesn't. They don't give it back if he fails. I'm just gonna. But it's a good incentive. It's a good incentive.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of other money tied to it, and the Department of Education can't take credit for that. That's the legislature coming through in the budget, and we appreciate that. But there was a huge amount of money that was devoted to credentials this year that, unfortunately, due to the pandemic and some of the issues with the state budget, it has been reduced quite a bit. But still excited about the opportunity, and that money will still be there once we can return to operating. Yeah,
I would be just thinking about the credentials, because the reimbursements, because often we think like, oh, that's like a year from now. I don't know. Yeah, basically there's a pool of money, and however many credentials there are, we distribute it. So you're not getting 100% reimbursement if everybody applies for it. So I want to say this most recent year, I want to say it was possibly. Might have been like 37%, but I don't know. I could be wrong, but
yeah, and so that's one of the keys to the budget amount that was applied is that hopefully at this point it would reimburse for each student that earns credentials because of the increased budget amount. With the amount that was set aside for economically disadvantaged students was being reimbursed, usually at around a 50% rate, I believe, but they increased that amount pretty significantly.
Perfect.
So thank you, Joe. Appreciate your time. We'll post this recording as soon as we can, and we'll also provide the slide deck as well as a PDF. So thank you all for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us for the rest of our conference. Thanks, Joe.
All right.